A room full of the most dangerous criminals in the city. Everyone is dressed in black. The air is so thick you could cut it with a knife. In the center of it all sits the Mafia boss's fiancée. The woman everyone bows to. The woman just one wrong look at could get you killed. And then a maid walks up to her, pulls her arm back, and punches her square in the face in front of everyone. That is the story we're breaking down today. And trust me, by the time we get to why that maid threw that punch, you are not going to believe the twist. Let's set the scene. You have a mafia family. We're talking old school, organized crime. The kind where loyalty means everything and betrayal means a one-way trip to the bottom of the river. The boss, let's call him Don Vincente, has run this empire for decades. He's cold, calculated, and ruthless. But even the coldest men have a weakness. And his weakness had a name, Isabella. Isabella was Don Vincente's fiancée. But she wasn't just some pretty face he kept around for show. Oh no, this woman was feared almost as much as the Don himself. People whispered that she was the real brains behind half the operations. She had a temper that could freeze fire. And she loved nothing more than reminding everyone beneath her exactly where they stood. If you were a soldier in the family, you avoided eye contact with her. If you were a captain, you made sure her wine glass was never empty. And if you were a maid, you basically had to learn how to be invisible. Because Isabella had a reputation. She once fired a maid for breathing too loud. Another time, she threw a hot cup of tea at a server who didn't bow low enough. This wasn't a woman you crossed. This wasn't even a woman you looked at the wrong way. Now enter our maid. Let's call her Elena. Elena wasn't new to the estate. She had been working there for about 2 years. Quiet, hardworking, kept her head down. The other staff liked her because she never gossiped and never tried to get close to the family. She just showed up, did her work, and left. Nobody knew much about her past. Nobody really asked. In a house full of criminals, asking questions was the fastest way to become a problem. So for 2 years, Elena cleaned floors, made beds, and served meals. She watched Isabella bark orders at everyone. She watched the Don ignore most of it. And she never said a word. That is, until the night of the big dinner. This dinner was important. All the top lieutenants were there. The heads of different crews from across the city. This was a power meeting. Deals being made. Territory being divided. And of course, Isabella was seated right next to the Don, wearing a blood-red dress, diamonds around her neck, looking like a queen sitting on a throne made of bones. The dinner had been going smoothly. Plates of expensive food. Glasses of even more expensive wine. Everyone was on their best behavior. Until dessert. That's when Elena walked in carrying a tray of coffee and small cakes. Nothing unusual. She had done this 100 times before. But this time, as she leaned over to place a cup in front of Isabella, she stumbled. Just a little. The coffee cup rattled on the saucer. A tiny splash of liquid hit the tablecloth. Now, in any normal house, that's nothing. An accident. You wipe it up and move on. But this wasn't a normal house. And Isabella wasn't a normal person. Isabella slammed her hand on the table. The whole room went silent. You could hear the ice clinking and the glasses stop. Every single dangerous man in that room froze. Because they knew what was coming. Isabella looked up at Elena, and her eyes were like daggers. "You clumsy little rat," she said. Not loud, quiet, which made it even scarier. "Do you have any idea how much this dress costs? Do you have any idea who I am?" Elena just stood there, tray in hand, face blank. She didn't apologize, didn't bow her head. She just looked at Isabella. And that silence? That made Isabella even angrier. "Get on your knees," Isabella said. right now, and kiss my feet. Maybe then I won't have you beaten." The Don didn't say a word. He just watched. That was his way. He wanted to see how people reacted under pressure. The lieutenants at the table looked away. Nobody wanted to make eye contact with Isabella. Nobody wanted to get involved. One maid's life didn't matter compared to their own skin. So Elena did something unexpected. She put the tray down on the table, slowly, carefully, and then she looked Isabella right in the eyes. For the first time, Elena spoke. Not a whisper, not a plea, just 2 words. "No, I won't." The room gasped. Gasps from grown men who had killed people with their bare hands. That's how shocking this was. A maid telling the Mafia boss's fiancée no? In front of the entire leadership? It was unheard of. It was suicide. Isabella stood up so fast her chair flew backward and hit the floor. Her face turned red, then white, then red again. She pointed a finger at Elena, nail sharp like a claw. "Guards!" she screamed. "Someone take this filth to the basement. I want to hear her scream for hours." 2 guards stepped forward. Big men, armed, the kind of men who made problems disappear. They grabbed Elena by the arms. But Elena didn't fight. She didn't cry. She just turned her head and looked at one of the guards. And then she smiled. That smile confused everyone. Why was she smiling? Was she crazy? Did she have a death wish? Before anyone could figure it out, Elena moved. Fast, too fast. She twisted her arms free like the guards weren't even holding her. Then she stepped forward, pulled her fist back, and punched Isabella directly in the face. Right on the jaw. The sound echoed through the dining hall like a baseball bat hitting a side of beef. Isabella's head snapped to the side. Her diamond earring flew off. She stumbled backward, tripped over her own heels, and crashed onto the floor. Blood dripped from her lip onto her perfect red dress. For a full 3 seconds, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The most feared woman in the city just got knocked out by a maid in front of the entire Mafia leadership. And then chaos exploded. Half the men at the table jumped to their feet. Guns came out. Chairs scraped against the floor. The Don finally looked up from his wine glass. But he didn't look angry. He looked curious. That should have been the first clue that something strange was going on. The guards grabbed Elena again. This time they didn't let go. They pinned her arms behind her back. Isabella was screaming from the floor. "Kill her! Kill her right now! I want her dead!" The Don raised one hand. Just one. Everything stopped. The guards froze. Isabella went quiet. The lieutenants held their breath. Don Vincente stood up, walked slowly around the table, and stopped right in front of Elena. He looked at her for a long time. Then he looked down at Isabella, still sitting in a puddle of wine and blood. And then he did something nobody expected. He laughed. A deep, genuine laugh that filled the whole room. The kind of laugh that made everyone else wish they knew what was so funny. "Elena," the Don said, "I think you've made your point." The guards let go of her arms immediately. Elena straightened her uniform, rolled her shoulders back, and looked at Isabella with nothing but cold disappointment. Isabella was crying now, mascara running down her face, confused, humiliated, and terrified, because she was finally starting to realize what everyone else in the room had just figured out. Elena wasn't a maid. She never had been. 2 years ago, Don Vincente's biggest rival tried to have him killed. A car bomb. A drive-by. Classic stuff. But the Don survived, barely. And when he survived, he didn't get angry. He got smart. He realized he couldn't trust anyone around him. His guards could be bought. His captains could be turned. So he brought in someone from outside. someone nobody would recognize, someone with a very specific set of skills. Elena was former military, special forces, the kind of soldier who doesn't exist on paper. She had taken down targets in 3 countries that don't have extradition treaties. And for the past 2 years, she had been living as a maid inside the Don's own house, cleaning toilets, making beds, scrubbing floors, all while watching everyone who came and went, all while making sure nobody got too close to the boss. She was the ultimate bodyguard, invisible, untouchable, and deadly. The Don had told her from day one, "Only act if my life is in danger. Do not reveal yourself for anything else." But he also gave her one more order, a secret order. He said, "If my fiancée ever becomes more of a threat than an asset, handle it." See, Don Vincente had been getting tired of Isabella for a while. She had grown too bold, too cruel. She was making enemies faster than he could make deals. The other families were starting to refuse meetings if she was going to be there. She was bad for business. But he couldn't just dump her. A woman like Isabella knew too much. She would talk. She would burn everything down out of spite. So he needed a way to remove her that left no loose ends. A way that made her look foolish. A way that reminded everyone else in the room exactly who was really in charge. That punch? That wasn't just a maid snapping. That was an execution of a plan 2 years in the making. Isabella sat on the floor, finally putting the pieces together. Her face went pale. She looked up at the Don, then at Elena, then back at the Don. You planned this?" The Don didn't answer. He just looked at the lieutenants around the table. "Does anyone here have a problem with how tonight has gone?" Not a single person spoke. 1 or 2 were even smiling. They had hated Isabella for years. They just never had the guts to say it. The Don snapped his fingers. 2 new guards stepped forward. Not the same ones from before. Different ones. Ones who worked directly for him. "Take Miss Isabella to the airport. She's leaving the country tonight. She won't be coming back. And if she ever tries to contact anyone in this family again, Elena will pay her another visit." Isabella didn't scream. Didn't curse. She just stood up, wiped the blood from her lip with the back of her hand, and walked out of the dining hall without looking back. She knew when she was beaten. She knew when the game was over. And Elena? She went back to cleaning up the coffee spill. Because that's what maids do. Except now, everyone in that room knew the truth. The maid wasn't just a maid. She was the most dangerous person in the house. And the next time she poured your wine, you smiled. You said thank you. And you prayed you never gave her a reason to put the tray down. Here's the real lesson in all of this. Power is rarely where it seems. That loud, flashy person demanding everyone bow to them, they're often the weakest in the room. Real power is quiet.